So the first one we have up is about DeAndre Swift. Ryan has him at 13. Keoni has him at 3.
Round 1, fight.
Well, I love Swift. I love the Eagles. I love watching him play. He looks explosive behind his offensive line, back-to-back games over 130 yards. He has 1 touchdown. He can get to the 1-yard line, and guess what's going to happen? Jalen Hurts is going to take that ball, and he's going to put it in the end zone.
The tush push.
And Swift is getting barely any passing work. And so you are going against a Washington team where the strength is the front 4. I know the Eagles can run the ball at anyone, but if they do struggle to run the ball, and I think this is going to be a game that they do pass the ball more, I think that leaves Swift out. And I have him as a, RB2, and I'm kind of iffy on that as well. I just see the production. I want to play him. I want him to be that high. But there's just not a ceiling for him to be a top 3 running back. You got to catch passes or get touchdowns. Your 26-yard run from the 40 to the 40 is cool, but that gives it 2.6 points. I need something. I need some more. It's just he's a very good running back behind a very good offensive line on a very good team. Where are the touchdowns?
I can agree with you on a good amount of those aspects, but it's not like he hasn't, sniffed this before. He has finished as the RB4 and 15 over the last 2 weeks, and he faces an opponent who has allowed over 128 rushing yards per game. And this Eagles team loves to run the ball. I think their defense can bully Washington and have a good amount of possessions for DeAndre Swift to get the ball. Now, I know Gainwell is back, and that will likely cause his snap count to go down like it did last week. It went from around 75% in week 2 to around 55% in week 3. However, he is doing a lot with the ball still. Over the past 2 weeks,
100%.
he has rushed for over 7 yards per carry and has an average of 22 carries per game in that span. Now, if I do the math correct, that adds up to about over 150 yards. And like you said, that's an incredible point about his touchdowns, because if they get, if they are on the goal line, it's going to be Jalen Hurts. But you're hoping, and, I can believe that he can get a touchdown, get into the end zone this week, along with those yards, just because of the amount of volume that I think they're going to be getting.
Talk about the receptions. 5 receptions for 14 yards, Keoni. This guy is a pass catcher. Come on. You got to talk about that. There has to be something.
I know. They don't pass the ball to him, but still over 150 yards and a touchdown. That's still a really, really, really good, top performance. And this O-line is tremendous. We know that. I just think he can be a top 5 person against Washington because of the volume that they're going to get. And just because he's been dynamic.
Round 2 fights. This one, once again, it's Keoni versus Ryan, but they have Calvin Ridley ranked different. Keoni has him at 25, and Ryan has him at 11. So,
round 2, fight.
This is one where I kind of had to keep dropping him, even though I like Calvin Ridley. I had guys ahead of him that I think could do better. I had Olave. I had Atwell, which I'll talk about more in the next segment. I had St. Brown. I had Devonta Smith. I had Flowers. I even had Sutton. I could probably switch him around with, a few of those guys, but I don't have him as a top, wide receiver. Sutton. Cortland Sutton. The Bears are awful.
The Broncos are also awful. What? Okay.
But Sutton is a.
No. So you're right. Let's keep going with Calvin Ridley.
Sutton ranked higher than Calvin Ridley?
Perhaps.
Ryan wins this
again. I said I could switch them around in any order per se. It's just a matter of how you do rankings. Somebody has to, you can't have them at the same spot.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, I don't have him. Regardless, I don't have him as a top wide receiver versus Atlanta, which Atlanta, by the way, has allowed the fourth fewest passing yards in the league so far. And although the Jaguars do tend to pass quite a bit, they've been sort of in a funk the past 2 weeks, especially Ridley, who has finished as the wide receiver 81 and 66, respectively. He is being targeted, but out of his 15 targets in weeks 2 through 3, he's caught 5 of them for 72 total yards and no touchdowns. He has cooled off significantly since week 1, and I think it's going to stay that way in London. Bit of the old yips, if I do say so myself. Don't give up on him entirely, though. I mean, I think he'll be around low end wide receiver 2, which is basically where I have him. But certainly not a wide receiver 1, how you have him this week.
There's nothing sweeter than revenge. It's time. Revenge game is here. Calvin Ridley. Yes, you're right. He's had 2 lackluster weeks. But he has 3 drops, and they're probably all been touchdowns. If he catches those balls, catches those touchdowns, we are not worried about his production. He has 26 targets through 3 games. He's going to London, where the Jags are basically a home team there. They play there basically every year. They have the whole organization knows what to do. Going against a team in Atlanta that traded Ridley, that they could have brought him back. Why didn't they want to bring him back? He was part of the organization. They moved on from him. They didn't want him. They drafted Drake London. They wanted Kyle Pitts. They wanted to run the ball. He didn't fit the scheme. Ridley's a top receiver, and he knows it. He comes out this week, and I'll predict the score right now. 9 receptions. $150. He's making up for those drops, baby. 2 touchdowns against his former team. AJ Terrell don't know what's going to happen. And I'll put a fantasy bet on it, Keoni.